Lucy Bennett stood at the entrance of the Galactic Military Academy and felt very small. She had always been short compared to other humans, but here, surrounded by aliens from across the galaxy, she felt like a child among giants. The station called Kepler 7 was massive. Its metal corridors stretched in every direction, filled with creatures she had only seen in textbooks. A Vraxian warrior walked past her, his scales shimmering blue and green under the lights. He stood almost 9 feet tall. His footsteps made the floor shake slightly. Lucy barely reached his chest. She picked up her bag and walked toward the registration hall. Other new cadets stared at her as she passed. Some whispered to each other in languages her translator chip could understand. "Is that a human?" one asked. "They let someone that small join the military?" Another laughed. Lucy kept walking. She had heard these things before. During her testing on Earth, the officials had looked at her like she was crazy. They suggested she try for the medical corps instead. But Lucy had scored higher than almost everyone on the strategy tests. She could think fast and solve problems that confused others. Her body might be small, but her mind was sharp. The registration took an hour. They scanned her, gave her a uniform, and assigned her to Barracks Unit 12, Platoon Delta. The uniform was made special for her size, but it still looked a bit loose. Lucy did not care. She was here. She had made it. The walk to the barracks felt long. Aliens of every type moved through the halls. Some had fur, some had scales, some seemed to be made of crystal. They all had one thing in common. They were all bigger than her. Lucy found her sleeping pod in the barracks and started to unpack. The room was large, designed to fit many different species. The pods could change size and temperature. Lucy set hers to human standard and put her few belongings inside. She was arranging her training clothes when a shadow fell over her. Lucy looked up and her breath caught in her throat. Commander Kale Vorthrak stood in the doorway. Lucy had read about the Dravok species. They came from a death world where only the strongest survived. They were hunters, predators, feared across the galaxy, but reading about them was different from standing near one. Kyle was huge. He stood over 8 feet tall, covered in black fur that seemed to absorb light. His eyes glowed amber like burning coals. 3 long scars ran down the left side of his face from some old battle. His claws, each as long as Lucy's fingers, tapped against the doorframe. When he breathed, Lucy could hear it, slow and controlled like a sleeping beast. "Cadets, attention." His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. Every cadet in the room snapped to attention. Lucy stood straight beside her pod, eyes forward, hands at her sides. The top of her head barely reached Kale's chest. The commander walked slowly down the line of cadets. He stopped at each one, looking them over with those predator eyes. When he reached a Kelthron cadet, he tapped the alien's armored shell with one claw. The sound rang through the room. He nodded and moved on. Then he reached Lucy. He stopped completely. Kyle looked down at her for what felt like forever. Lucy could smell him now, a wild scent like forests and storms. Every part of her human brain was screaming at her to run. This was a predator. This was something that could kill her without thinking. But Lucy had not come this far to show fear. "Name," Kale said. His voice was quieter now, but no less powerful. "Cadet Lucy Bennett, sir. Human from Earth, sir." "You are very small, Cadet Bennett." "Yes, sir." "Do you think you can survive the training here?" Lucy looked up into those amber eyes. She did not look away. "I plan to do more than survive, sir." "I plan to be the best." Something changed in Kale's face. His eyes narrowed slightly. Was that amusement? Interest? Lucy could not tell. He made a low sound in his throat, like a growl, but softer. Then he moved to the next cadet. But Lucy noticed something strange for the rest of that day. Whenever she looked up, Kale was watching her. Those amber eyes followed her movements. It was not threatening. It was more like he was studying her, trying to figure something out. That night, as Lucy lay in her pod, her body aching from the day's activities, she thought about that look. The other cadets had already started forming groups. The Vraxians stuck together. The Kelthrons formed their own unit. A few of the other species had paired off. Lucy was alone. She was used to that. But tomorrow the real training would start. Tomorrow she would have to prove that she belonged here, that her size did not matter, that humans could stand alongside these giant warriors and hold their own. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But her mind kept returning to Commander Kyle, to the way he had looked at her, to that strange sound he had made. The Dravok were predators. They hunted in packs. They protected their own and destroyed their enemies. What did it mean when a predator like Kyle took interest in someone as small as her? Lucy did not know, but she had a feeling she would find out soon enough. The station's artificial night cycle dimmed the lights in the barracks. Around her, Lucy could hear the breathing of dozens of alien cadets. Some snored. Some made clicking sounds. One of the Zephits hummed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. Lucy's last thought before sleep took her was simple. She would show them, all of them. Size did not matter. Strength came in many forms, and she would prove that a small human could be just as tough as any giant alien warrior. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. The next morning came too early. An alarm blared through the barracks at exactly 5 a.m. Lucy jerked awake, her heart pounding. Around her, the other cadets were climbing out of their pods. All cadets report to Training Ground Alpha. In 10 minutes, a voice boomed over the speaker system. Full uniform. Anyone late will run extra laps. Lucy scrambled to get dressed. Her fingers fumbled with the unfamiliar uniform fastenings. By the time she was ready, most of the other cadets were already heading out the door. She ran to catch up, her boots slapping against the metal floor. The training ground was 3 levels down. Lucy took the stairs 2 at a time, her legs burning with effort. She made it with 30 seconds to spare. The training ground was enormous, easily the size of 3 football fields. Obstacle courses lined one side. A running track circled the perimeter. In the center stood Commander Kale, his black fur gleaming under the harsh lights. Form ranks, he ordered. The cadets scrambled into lines. Lucy found herself in the front row again, right where Kale could see her. The commander walked along the lines, his claws clicking on the ground. You are here because you passed the basic tests, Kyle said, his voice carrying easily across the field. But passing basic tests means nothing. Here you will learn what it truly means to be a soldier. You will be pushed beyond what you think you can handle. Many of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few of you might even die, though we try to prevent that. He stopped directly in front of Lucy. She kept her eyes forward, but she could feel his presence like heat from a fire. The galaxy is not kind, Kale continued. It does not care if you are big or small, strong or weak. It will test you. It will break you if it can. My job is to make sure that when that test comes, you are ready. He moved on, continuing down the line. Today we start with basics. A simple run, 10 kilometers, in triple gravity. A shocked murmur ran through the assembled cadets. Triple gravity meant everything would feel 3 times heavier. For Lucy, it meant her 100-pound body would feel like 300 pounds. Begin, Kyle roared. The cadets started running. Lucy pushed herself forward, her legs already feeling like lead. This was going to be harder than she thought. But as she ran, struggling to keep pace, she noticed something. Kyle had climbed to an observation platform overlooking the track, and even from this distance, even as she focused on putting one foot in front of the other, Lucy could feel those amber eyes watching her every step. The first 2 weeks nearly broke Lucy. Every morning started the same way. Wake up at 5, run in triple gravity until her legs shook. Obstacle courses built for aliens twice her size. Combat training against opponents who could crush her with one hand. Classes on tactics and weapons that lasted until midnight. Lucy's body screamed in pain. Her muscles felt like they were tearing apart. She spent every free moment in the medical bay, getting treatments for pulled muscles and sore joints. The doctor, a kind centauri named Mira, tried to be gentle, but even the healing hurt. You should request a transfer, Mira said one night as she worked on Lucy's shoulder. There is no shame in it. You are not built for this kind of training. Lucy gritted her teeth against the pain. I am not quitting. Stubborn, Mira said, but she sounded almost approving. Every day, more cadets dropped out. A Vraxian who could not handle the mental stress. 2 Kelthrans who failed the tactical simulations. Even one of the Centauri twins transferred to a different program. The remaining cadets grew stronger, harder, more focused. Lucy struggled more than most. During the obstacle courses, she had to find creative ways around challenges. When a wall was too high to climb, she looked for another path. When a weight was too heavy to lift, she used a lever. In combat training, when opponents were too strong to fight directly, she learned to dodge and move and tire them out. Commander Kale watched everything. He never spoke to her directly during training, but Lucy always felt his eyes on her. The other instructors whispered among themselves. She overheard them talking one day outside the training hall. "The human cannot keep up," one said. "We should transfer her before she gets hurt." "She is trying her best, but her best is not enough," another agreed. Then came Kale's voice, hard as iron. "She stays. That is final." Lucy did not understand why he was protecting her. She was not the best cadet. She was probably the weakest physically. But something about her had caught his interest, and Kale did not seem like the type to change his mind easily. The turning point came in the 3rd week. The exercise was a tactical simulation. 2 teams of 6 cadets each had to capture the enemy flag while defending their own. Lucy's team included 2 Vraxians named Groth and Vara, a Kelthran called Shex, a Zephite whose name Lucy could not pronounce, and the remaining Centauri twin. Next, the opposing team was led by Drez, a massive Vraxian who made no secret of his dislike for Lucy. He had mocked her size more than once. He called her little human in a way that was not kind. When the exercise began, Drez's team charged straight at Lucy's position. They came fast and hard, using their size and strength to push forward. The standard response would be to meet them head-on, to fight force with force. Lucy had a different idea. "Fall back to secondary positions," she ordered through her comm unit. "Use pattern Echo 7, Groth hesitated. He was twice Lucy's size and had more combat experience. "That is a retreat pattern. We should stand and fight, trust me," Lucy said calmly. "Fall back now." The team followed her order, though some did it reluctantly. They abandoned the central area and pulled back to defensive positions. From the observation deck, Kyle leaned forward. The other instructors muttered that the human was making a mistake, but Lucy was not retreating. She was setting a trap. While Drez's team celebrated taking the center and pushed toward Lucy's flag, she split her team into 3 small groups. The Centauri twin next circled around through the maintenance corridors that ran along the walls. The Zephite used its natural ability to bend light, creating illusions to confuse the enemy, and Lucy, along with Groth and Shex, crawled through a small ventilation shaft. The shaft was too narrow for most species. Groth barely fit, but Lucy slipped through easily, her small size finally an advantage. They emerged behind enemy lines, right next to Drez's flag position. Only one cadet was guarding it, and he was watching the wrong direction. Lucy signaled her team. They moved fast and silent. Before the guard could react, they had captured the flag. The alarm sounded. Exercise complete. Lucy's team won. In the briefing room afterward, Drez slammed his fist on the table hard enough to dent it. She cheated. She used passages that were not on the map. Lucy met his angry gaze without fear. "I used the terrain that was available. The rules did not say we could only use mapped routes." Kyle stood from his seat. The room went completely silent. Every cadet knew better than to speak when the commander was angry. But Kale was not looking at Lucy with anger. He walked to the holographic display and replayed the exercise. The recording showed Lucy's team movements, the clever use of the ventilation shaft, the way she had used the Zephite's abilities to create a diversion. "Cadet Bennett used her brain," Kale said, his deep voice filling the room. "She knew she could not win with strength alone, so she changed the battlefield. She turned her weakness into an advantage. She used terrain her opponents could not access. This is what separates good soldiers from great warriors. Great warriors adapt." He turned to face the assembled cadets, his amber eyes sweeping across them. "Size does not matter. Strength does not matter. What matters is here." He tapped his head with one claw. "And here." He placed his hand over his chest where his heart would be. Then Kale looked directly at Lucy. "Excellent work, Cadet Bennett. You have shown everyone in this room what real tactical thinking looks like." For the first time since arriving at the academy, Lucy allowed herself to smile. After that day, everything changed. The other cadets stopped making jokes about her size. They started asking her for advice on tactics. During group exercises, they actually listened to her suggestions. Even Drez, though he still did not like losing to her, gave her a grudging nod of respect. But the biggest change was in how Commander Kale treated her. He began giving her special training sessions after the regular day ended. While other cadets rested, Lucy was in the gym with Kale, learning advanced combat techniques. Humans are persistence hunters, Kale explained one evening. They were in the combat ring and Lucy was exhausted from a full day of training. Your ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You are built for endurance, not burst strength. Use that. He demonstrated a fighting style Lucy had never seen before. It involved constant movement, never staying still, wearing down the opponent while avoiding their powerful attacks. In my culture, the smallest pack members are often the most dangerous, Kyle continued. They cannot win by strength, so they win by being smarter, faster, and more determined than everyone else. You will learn to fight this way. Lucy absorbed every lesson like a sponge soaking up water. Kale drilled her relentlessly. He made her practice the same moves hundreds of times until they became automatic. He taught her to read body language, to see an attack coming before it happened, to turn an opponent's size against them. The training was brutal, but Lucy never complained. She understood what Kale was doing. He was preparing her for a galaxy that would see her as weak and try to crush her. He was giving her the tools to survive. One night, after a particularly hard session, Lucy found Kale standing alone on the observation deck. He was looking out at the stars, his black fur silvered by the light from distant suns. "Sir?" Lucy said quietly. "May I ask you something?" Kale's ear twitched, showing he heard her. "Speak. Why do you train me harder than the others? Why do you spend extra time with me?" For a long moment, Kale said nothing. The silence stretched between them. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than Lucy had ever heard it. "The galaxy is cruel to those who are small or weak. It does not forgive. It does not give second chances. You have the heart of a warrior inside a body that others will underestimate and mock. If I do not prepare you properly, if I do not push you to be better than you think you can be, then I am sending you to your death." He turned to look at her, his amber eyes intense. "And I will not do that. I will not let you fail because I failed to teach you." Lucy felt something tight in her chest. "I will not let you down, sir. I promise." "You have not let me down yet, little one," Kale said. "You are still here. You are still fighting. That is all I ask." Lucy stood beside him in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. But right here, right now, in this moment, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The training continued. Lucy grew stronger, faster, smarter. She learned to use her size as a weapon instead of a weakness. She learned that being small meant she was hard to hit, hard to predict, hard to stop once she got moving. And always, Commander Kale was there, watching, teaching, protecting, making sure she became the warrior he knew she could be. The accident happened in the 4th month of training. It was supposed to be a simple exercise, nothing dangerous. The cadets were divided into small squads and sent into the lower engineering levels of the station. Their task was to locate and disable training drones that were programmed to act like enemy soldiers. Lucy's squad moved carefully through the dark corridors. The lower levels were a maze of pipes, machinery, and narrow passages. Perfect for this type of training. Lucy led the way with Groth and 3 other cadets following behind her. Their weapons were set to training mode, firing harmless energy pulses instead of real ammunition. Everything was going according to plan. They had already disabled 3 drones and were making their way to the 4th target zone. Then the alarms started. Red lights flashed along the corridor walls. A harsh siren split the air. Lucy checked her wrist display and her blood went cold. "Environmental failure in Section 9 Delta," she read aloud. "We need to move now." But they were too late. The explosion came from somewhere above them. Not a bomb, but a catastrophic failure in the atmospheric processors. The blast doors that were supposed to seal automatically malfunctioned. One corridor remained open, exposed to the vacuum of space beyond the station's outer hull. The pressure difference created a wind like nothing Lucy had ever experienced. It howled through the corridors, pulling everything toward the breach. Equipment, debris, anything not bolted down went flying toward certain death. Lucy's squad grabbed onto anything they could find. The Centauri twins wrapped their limbs around support beams. Groth, being massive and heavy, managed to anchor himself against the wall. The other cadets found handholds and clung desperately, but Lucy weighed barely 100 pounds. When the wind hit her full force, her boots lifted off the deck. She reached out desperately, her fingers brushing against a pipe. She could not grab it, could not hold on. The wind was too strong. She flew backward down the corridor, tumbling through the air like a leaf in a storm. Her squad shouted her name, but the wind drowned out their voices. Lucy could see the opening ahead, the failing atmospheric shield flickering and sparking. Beyond it was nothing but the cold darkness of space. This is it, she thought. This is how I die. Then something massive slammed into her from the side. The impact drove the air from her lungs. For a moment, Lucy could not breathe, could not think. But she was no longer flying toward the breach. She was pressed against something warm and solid, held tight by arms stronger than steel. Commander Kyle had been in the observation center when the alarm sounded. His predator instincts had calculated Lucy's trajectory in an instant. He had not hesitated, had not called for help, had not followed protocol. He had simply run. A Dravok at full sprint was a terrifying sight. Kale had covered 3 levels of the station in seconds, his powerful legs eating up distance. He had burst through a maintenance door, calculated the angle, and launched himself at Lucy like a missile. Now he held her against his chest with one arm, while his other hand extended his claws to full length. Those claws, sharp as razors and strong as titanium, punched through the metal deck plating. He anchored them both against the pull of decompression, his muscles straining with effort. Lucy could hear his heart hammering in his chest, could feel his breath coming fast and hard. His body curved around hers protectively, shielding her from flying debris. The emergency systems finally kicked in. Backup blast doors slammed shut with a sound like thunder. The wind died instantly. The alarms faded to a dull warning tone. The immediate danger was over. Kale slowly released his grip on the deck. His claws retracted, leaving deep gouges in the metal floor. He set Lucy down carefully, his hands checking her for injuries with surprising gentleness for someone with such deadly weapons. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, almost angry, but Lucy could hear the concern underneath. "I am okay," Lucy managed to say. Her whole body was shaking from adrenaline. "You saved my life, sir." Kyle's amber eyes studied her intently. His ears were flat against his head, a sign of distress in his species. For a long moment he just looked at her, as if making sure she was really alive and whole. Then he did something completely unexpected. He placed one large hand on top of Lucy's head. It was a gesture from his culture, one that Lucy had read about in her studies. It meant protection. It meant pack bonding. It meant she was under his care. "You are part of my unit," Kale said simply. "I protect my own." Word of what happened spread through the academy like wildfire. By the next day, everyone knew that Commander Kale Vorthrax, the legendary warrior who never showed favoritism, had risked his life to save the smallest cadet in the program. In Dravok culture, the gesture Kale had made was sacred. When a pack leader placed their hand on someone's head like that, it was a public declaration that person was now under their protection. To harm them was to challenge the pack leader directly. The other cadets treated Lucy differently after that. Some with respect, some with jealousy, but none with mockery. If Commander Kale had marked her as pack, then she was not to be trifled with. But the real change was in how Kale trained her. Before, he had been tough but fair. Now he was relentless. He pushed Lucy harder than ever, as if trying to prepare her for every possible danger the galaxy could throw at her. "Again," he would say when Lucy collapsed from exhaustion during their private training sessions, "the enemy will not give you rest. Get up." Again. And Lucy would get up. Always. No matter how tired, no matter how much her body hurt, because Kale had saved her life and she would not waste that gift. He taught her fighting techniques that were usually kept secret within Dravok culture. Ways to strike nerve clusters that would drop even large opponents. How to move in a way that was unpredictable, making it hard for enemies to track her. How to use her small size to slip through defenses that others could not penetrate. "You will never be the strongest," Kale told her during one session. "Accept this. But you can be the fastest thinker, the most adaptable, the one who survives when others fall. That is your strength." Lucy practiced until the moves became instinct. She started winning combat matches against opponents twice her size. The other cadets began to see her not as the weak human, but as a dangerous fighter who happened to be small. One evening, after a particularly brutal training day, Lucy found Cale in the observation deck again. It seemed to be his favorite place. He stood looking out at the stars, his black fur almost invisible in the darkness. "Sir," Lucy said quietly as she approached. Kyle's ear twitched. "You should be resting. Tomorrow will be harder." "Tomorrow is always harder," Lucy said with a small smile. "Sir, may I ask you something personal?" "You may ask. I may not answer." Lucy took a breath. "Why did you save me? You could have been killed. The regulations say you should have called the emergency response team. But you came yourself. Why?" Cale was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than Lucy had ever heard it. "When I saw you fall, when I calculated that you would not survive, something in me refused to accept it. In my culture, we have an instinct for pack. We protect those we claim as our own, even at cost to ourselves. From the first day I met you, small and defiant, refusing to be intimidated by species that could crush you, I recognized something." He turned to look at her. "I recognized a warrior spirit. And warriors are too rare to let die needlessly. Is that why you train me so hard? Because you see me as pack? I train you hard because the galaxy will be harder. I push you because enemies will push you further. I demand excellence because anything less will get you killed." Kyle's voice softened slightly. "And yes, because you are pack. Because I have claimed you as such, and I will not fail those under my protection." Lucy felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I will not let you down, sir. I swear it." "You have not let me down, little sister," Cale said, using the Dravok term for a junior pack member. "You have proven yourself again and again. Now you simply need to keep proving it until everyone else sees what I already know." "What do you know?" Cale's teeth showed in what might have been a smile. "That you are dangerous. That you are capable. That your size is irrelevant compared to your determination. And that anyone who underestimates you does so at their own peril." Lucy stood beside him, looking out at the infinite stars. Somewhere in her chest she felt something settle into place, a sense of belonging she had never felt before. She had a mentor, a protector, a pack leader who believed in her, and she would prove worthy of that belief no matter what it took. The Galactic Military Academy held evaluations once every year. It was a big event. Military leaders from across the galaxy came to watch. Politicians attended. Even members of the Galactic Council showed up to see the newest generation of warriors. The evaluations had many parts: strategic simulations, team exercises, equipment tests. But the event everyone cared about most was the combat tournament. It was single combat, one-on-one, where cadets could prove their skills in front of the entire galaxy. Lucy never expected to be selected for the tournament. Usually only the biggest, strongest cadets were chosen, the ones who would become shock troopers and heavy assault specialists. But when the list was posted, her name was on it. She found out later that Commander Cale had entered her name personally. When the other instructors questioned his choice, he had simply said, "She will prove herself. Watch." Lucy's first match was against a Kelthron named Vex. He was a heavy weapons specialist, built like a tank and covered in natural armor plating. He outweighed Lucy by 300 pounds. When they stepped into the arena, the crowd laughed. It looked like a joke. A tiny human against an armored giant. The match started and Vex charged. He was fast for his size, but Lucy was faster. She dodged his first strike, then his second. She had learned from Cale not to meet strength with strength. Instead, she used Vex's own momentum against him. When Vex threw a heavy punch, Lucy sidestepped and guided his fist past her. His armor made him strong, but also slow to change direction. Lucy targeted the weak points Cale had taught her to find. The joints where armor plates met. The soft spots that every species had. After 2 minutes, Vex collapsed, unable to continue. The arena fell silent in shock. Then the crowd erupted in surprised applause. Lucy's second match was against a Vraxian named Cross. He was a close combat expert, trained in 3 different fighting styles. This match was harder. It lasted nearly 5 minutes of intense fighting, but Lucy's endurance training paid off. Cross tired himself trying to land a decisive blow while Lucy picked him apart with precise strikes. When Cross went down, the crowd was no longer laughing. They were paying attention. By the quarterfinals, people had started to notice the small human cadet. By the semifinals, the arena was packed with spectators who wanted to see if she could keep winning. Lucy's semifinal opponent was Drez, the same Vraxian who had mocked her during the early training exercises. He had grown to respect her abilities, but his pride demanded he prove himself superior. When they faced each other in the arena, he bowed slightly, a sign of respect among his people. "You have come far, little human," Drez said, "but this is where your luck ends." "It was never about luck," Lucy replied. "The match was fierce. Drez used every advantage his size and strength gave him. He drove Lucy back across the arena floor, his attacks powerful and precise. But Lucy had trained for this. She had fought Kale himself in practice, and Kale was better than anyone in this tournament. She weathered Drez's assault, reading his patterns, waiting for the moment when he would overextend himself. It came when Drez committed everything to a powerful overhead strike, meant to end the match in one blow. Lucy sidestepped at the last possible moment. She used his momentum to throw him off balance. As he stumbled, she struck the nerve cluster at the base of his skull, exactly where Kale had taught her. Drez went down hard. The arena exploded with noise. Cadets from every species were on their feet, cheering. Lucy had made it to the finals. From the instructor platform, Commander Kale watched with his arms crossed over his chest. His face showed no expression, but his tail was high and his ears were forward. In Dravok body language, it meant pride. Lucy's final opponent was announced the next day. Sarth, a fourth-year Dravok cadet. He was younger than Kale, but came from the same death world, with the same predatory instincts and combat skills. He was the favorite to win the entire tournament. Before the final match, Kale called Lucy to his office. She had never been there before. It was simple, almost bare, with only a desk and a few personal items. Weapons hung on the wall, trophies from battles past. "Sarth is from my homeworld," Kyle said without preamble. "He is good, very good. He will not underestimate you, and he will not hold back." "I understand, sir. Do you?" Kale's amber eyes studied her. "He is faster than anyone you have faced, stronger, more experienced. If you try to match him in these areas, you will lose." "Then I will not try to match him," Lucy said. "I will do what you taught me. I will outlast him and outthink him." Kale made that low rumbling sound in his chest, the one Lucy had learned meant approval. "Good. Remember, you are not trying to be as strong as him. You are trying to survive him until he makes a mistake. Then you strike." "Yes, sir." Kale reached out and placed his hand on her head, the gesture of pack protection. "Go make me proud, little sister." The final match was scheduled for the main arena. Every seat was filled. Lucy could see members of the Galactic Council in the VIP section. High-ranking military officials. Even the representative from Earth was there, watching with obvious nervousness. And on the instructor platform, standing perfectly still like a statue of black stone, was Commander Kale. Lucy stepped into the arena. Across from her, Sarth entered from the opposite side. He was magnificent, all deadly grace and controlled power. His fur was lighter than Kale's, more gray than black, but his eyes glowed with the same amber fire. They bowed to each other. The traditional start to a formal combat match. The match began. Sarth was everything Kale had warned and more. He came at Lucy with combinations that would have overwhelmed most opponents. Fast, powerful, technically perfect. But Lucy had spent months training with Kale, who was even better than Sarth. She knew the patterns. She knew the tells. She dodged, deflected, and evaded. She did not try to match his power. Instead, she made him work for every strike. She kept moving, never staying still, forcing him to chase her around the arena. Minutes passed, then 10 minutes, then 15. The crowd grew quiet, watching the tiny human refuse to fall before the apex predator. Sarth's breathing grew heavier. Lucy could see sweat in his fur. He was tiring, burning energy with every powerful attack while Lucy conserved hers. This was what Kale had taught her. Humans were persistence hunters. They won by lasting longer than their prey. Lucy saw her chance. Sarth threw a combination that left him slightly off balance. It was a tiny mistake, one most fighters would never notice. But Lucy had been trained to see exactly these moments. She moved, fast and precise, using the techniques Kale had drilled into her 1,000 times. She struck Sarth's knee, making him stumble. Then she followed with a rapid series of strikes to nerve clusters and pressure points, each one perfectly placed. Sarth went down on one knee. Lucy's final strike stopped just short of his throat. her hand held steady even though her whole body was shaking with exhaustion. "Yield," she said quietly. Sarth looked up at her. Surprise and respect showed clearly in his eyes. "I yield," the arena erupted. The noise was incredible. Cadets from every species were on their feet, screaming and cheering. Lucy had just done something many thought impossible. She had defeated a Dravok in single combat, but Lucy's eyes went immediately to the instructor platform. Kyle still stood motionless, but now his tail was high, his ears forward, and his teeth showed slightly in what might have been a smile. Pride radiated from him. The medal ceremony came next. Lucy stood on the highest platform with the tournament championship around her neck. Second place went to Sarth, who nodded to her respectfully. Third place was Drez, who actually grinned at her. After the ceremony, as Lucy was surrounded by well-wishers and curious officials, a dignitary from the Galactic Council approached. He was a Centauri elder, his robes marking him as someone important. "Cadet Bennett," he said formally, "your performance today was extraordinary. The Council has authorized me to extend an invitation. We have an elite training program for exceptional individuals. We would be honored if you would join." Lucy glanced at Cale, who stood nearby. He gave a slight nod of approval. "I am honored, sir," Lucy said carefully. "May I have time to consider the offer?" "Of course. But know this, young warrior. The entire Empire has taken notice of you, the tiny human who fights like she was born to it. We will be watching your career with great interest." That evening, Lucy found Cale in the armory, maintaining his weapons as he often did. She approached quietly, still wearing her tournament medal. "Sir, I wanted to thank you for everything." Cale looked up from the blade he was sharpening. "You won through your own skill. I merely showed you the path. You did more than that. You believed in me when no one else did. You protected me. You made me better than I ever thought I could be." Cale set down his blade and stood. Then, to Lucy's shock, he lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes level with hers. It was a position of equality among his people, something offered only to true pack members. "You honor my teaching with your victories," Cale said formally, his voice deep and serious. "In the tradition of my people, I name you Pack Sister. Your enemies are my enemies. Your victories are my pride, and should you fall in battle, I will sing your name to the stars." Lucy felt tears in her eyes. She understood what Cale was offering. Among the Dravok, pack bonds were sacred, often stronger than family ties. Graduation day arrived with clear skies visible through the station's observation domes. Cadets who had survived the brutal year of training stood in perfect formation on the parade ground. They represented dozens of species from across the galaxy. Vraxians stood tall with their scales gleaming. Kelthrans formed solid lines in their armored shells. Centauri twins moved in synchronized grace. And in the front row of Platoon Delta, barely visible among the giants around her, stood Lucy Bennett. Her uniform was crisp and perfect. Her boots shined like mirrors. Her spine was straight and her chin was high. She might have been the smallest cadet on that field, but her bearing was as proud as any warrior there. Commander Cale gave the graduation speech. His voice carried across the assembled crowd, deep and powerful. He spoke of duty, honor, and sacrifice. He talked about the bonds formed in training, bonds that would last a lifetime. He reminded them that they were no longer just individuals from different worlds. They were now soldiers of the Galactic Empire, sworn to protect all species under its banner. When Cale finished speaking, his amber eyes swept across the graduates. They lingered on Lucy for just a heartbeat longer than the others, a tiny acknowledgement that only she would understand. The assignments were handed out next. Each graduate learned where they would serve. Many received posts on border patrol ships watching for pirates and raiders. Some went to garrison duties on frontier worlds. A few were selected for specialized training in fields like intelligence or engineering. When Lucy's name was called, the entire parade ground fell silent. "Cadet Lucy Bennett," the announcer said clearly, "assigned to the Galactic Tactical Response Unit, Special Operations Division. Rank Junior Lieutenant." A murmur ran through the crowd. The Tactical Response Unit was legendary. They handled the Empire's most dangerous missions, the operations that regular military forces could not manage. It was almost unheard of for a fresh graduate to be assigned there, especially with an officer rank. After the ceremony, Lucy was surrounded by other graduates wanting to congratulate her. Officers she had never met came to shake her hand. Even some of the instructors who had doubted her early on now offered grudging respect. But Lucy extracted herself from the crowd as quickly as she could. She had to find someone. She found Cale outside the main hall, standing alone and looking up at the stars through the observation dome. It was his favorite place, the spot where he always went to think. "Congratulations, Lieutenant Bennett," he said without turning around. Lucy walked to stand beside him. "I still cannot believe it, sir. Special operations. They must have made some kind of mistake." Now Cale did turn, and his expression was serious. "The Tactical Response Unit does not make mistakes in selection. You were chosen because you have qualities they need: intelligence, adaptability, the ability to win when others would fail." He paused. "And because I recommended you personally." Lucy's eyes went wide. "You recommended me?" "I trained you for a year. I know what you can do better than any test or evaluation. You will face dangers that would break most soldiers. You will work in situations where your size and species make you vulnerable. But you will also surprise enemies who think you are weak. You will go places others cannot reach. You will survive because you are too stubborn to quit and too smart to fail." His voice softened. "You are ready, little sister. I will miss you, sir. Who will keep me sharp now? Who will push me when I want to rest?" Cale's tail swished in what Lucy now recognized as amusement. "You think we are parting ways? I have also received new orders. I am to command the training division for the Tactical Response Unit." His amber eyes gleamed. "It seems we will continue working together, Lieutenant." Relief and joy flooded through Lucy. "Then I guess you will keep making my life difficult?" "I would be failing as your pack brother if I did not," Cale replied. An officer approached and saluted. "Lieutenant Bennett? Your transport to headquarters is ready. They want you to begin briefings immediately." Lucy returned the salute, then turned back to Cale. She stood at attention and gave him a formal military salute. "Thank you, sir. For everything. For believing in me. For protecting me. For making me into a warrior." Cale returned the salute crisply. Then he did something that surprised the watching officer. He pulled Lucy into a brief embrace, the Dravok way of saying goodbye to family. Show them what humans can do. Make them understand that size means nothing compared to strength of spirit. "I will, sir. I promise." Lucy walked toward the transport bay. She could feel eyes on her from every direction. By now, her story had spread across the Empire. The tiny human cadet and her apex predator mentor. Some saw it as strange. Others saw it as inspiring. But everyone had heard of Lucy Bennett and Commander Cale Vorthrax. The transport was a sleek military shuttle, fast and efficient. Lucy took a seat by the window and watched as Kepler 7 station grew smaller in the distance. Somewhere on that station, Cale was already planning training exercises for the next group of recruits. He would push them hard, just as he had pushed her. Some would quit. Some would fail. But a few would become great warriors. Lucy's communicator chimed. She opened it to find a message from Cale. It was short and simple, just like him. "Remember, little sister, the galaxy is vast and filled with those who will see you as weak. Prove them wrong. Use their assumptions against them. And know that wherever you go, you carry the pride of your pack. Make them fear you." Lucy smiled and typed a response. "Always, Commander. I will make them remember the name Lucy Bennett. And I will never forget who taught me to be strong." She settled back in her seat and looked out at the stars streaming past. The medal from the combat tournament rested against her chest, a reminder of how far she had come. 1 year ago, she had been a cadet who everyone thought would fail. Too small, too weak, too human. Now she was a lieutenant in the most elite unit in the galaxy. She had proven that size did not matter, that determination and intelligence could overcome any physical limitation, that a small human could stand beside the greatest warriors in the Empire and hold her own. The transport carried her toward her new assignment, toward missions and challenges she could only imagine. But Lucy was not afraid. She had been trained by the best, protected by a pack brother who would move mountains to keep her safe. She carried the skills and knowledge of a culture that valued warriors above all else. More than that, she carried something intangible but powerful: confidence. Not arrogance, but the quiet certainty that she could handle whatever the galaxy threw at her, that she would find a way to win, no matter the odds. The Galactic Tactical Response Unit headquarters appeared in the viewport. a massive station bristling with weapons and defenses. Ships of every size came and went, carrying warriors to missions across the galaxy. Soon, Lucy would be on one of those ships. As the transport docked, Lucy stood and straightened her uniform one last time. She picked up her bag, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the airlock. The door opened and she stepped through into her new life. A senior officer was waiting for her, a tall Vraxian with commander insignia. He looked down at Lucy, his expression unreadable. "Lieutenant Bennett?" "Yes, sir." The commander studied her for a moment, taking in her small frame, her human features, the determination in her eyes. "I have read your file. Quite impressive for someone so young. The commander of training speaks very highly of you." "Commander Kyle is a good teacher, sir." "He must be, if he turned someone your size into a warrior who defeated a Dravok in single combat." The Vraxian's expression softened slightly. "Welcome to the Tactical Response Unit, Lieutenant. I suspect you will fit in here just fine. We value results, not appearances, and from what I hear you get results. I do my best, sir. Then come, let me show you to your quarters and introduce you to your team. We have a briefing in 2 hours for your first mission. I hope you are ready to start work immediately." Lucy followed the commander through the corridors of her new home. Around her, elite soldiers from across the galaxy moved with purpose. Some glanced at her curiously. A few nodded in recognition. Word had spread even here. As she walked, Lucy thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The struggles, the pain, the victories. The bond she had formed with a predator who had seen past her size to the warrior within. She was ready. For the missions ahead, for the challenges waiting, for the enemies who would underestimate her and learn too late what a mistake that was. The galaxy had taken notice of Lucy Bennett. The tiny human who fought like a giant. The warrior who proved that true strength came from the heart, not the body. And this, she knew with absolute certainty, was only the beginning. Her legend was just starting to be written, and she would make sure it was a story worth telling.